Word on the street. FisMaz Show. What's the word on the street? Like, who got the beats that be killing the game? Who's up on the scale? Who playing who? What's the score on the sheet? Fiso the Prince got him taking the seat. Got the legends giving us the 411. Fiso Muz from the 031. No hating sports and entertainment when we got it all and we the only ones. And after all that action, never how we dripping high fashion. Drippy on some rich municipal stylists and soak up with passion. If it's giving us less, then we never settle. Make sure you pull up and bring all your medals. Sit back and relax, let's go. It's FisMaz bringing you the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show. It's the FisMaz Show.
Yeah, hello everyone. You know what? I've had a lot on my mind with regards to what to do with the next episode. I mean, initially I saw the appointment of the coach at TX Galaxy. I thought to myself, why can't Sean Bartlett get a crack at it? So initially I was going to do the episode around, I guess that, why can't we just believe in our own? Why do we always need to look abroad? And yeah, I mean, that was a really interesting subject for me, because I always feel like a guy like Sean Bartlett has always been overlooked from a coaching perspective. Golden Arrows, he took them up to the top division. But at the end of the day, when the team got to the top division, he wasn't trusted with that role. And massively sad for me, because I look at one of the true greats of South African football, a player with a really top career abroad and locally. So yeah, I mean, it left me scratching my head as per usual. But as time went, I realized, I guess we've kind of spoken about that before, and yeah, there is still space to speak about such things. But there's also just so much going on in South African football. I don't know if you guys saw that Mamkize. Hey guys, yeah, I love South African football. But it's always a bit distasteful when you see such things happening. And I guess it's one of those things that are so unique. it's never happened before. And also Anande Berger, who's in charge of obviously the DC for the PSL. I'm sure they were scratching their heads thinking, oh, how do we find them? What are they in breach of? And I happened to get a look at some of those those fines they received, and yeah, interesting times. I mean, there's no shortage of drama in South African football. But yeah, I eventually decided to settle on Bafana Bafana. I know a few episodes back we spoke about Bafana Bafana and their start to the qualifiers, and this time, for me, the slightly more interesting topic was around, I guess, the coach Hugo Bruce. He has really come out and pulled no punches with regards to, I guess, how he feels South African football is run, how he feels South African football can do better. And yeah, man, I mean, he's just really been strong with regards to his words. I'm sure all of you know about the incident at the Orlando Stadium where he wasn't allowed in. I believe, again, I stand to be corrected. I believe that it happened more than once. Twice was what I heard. But I think he spoke out after the Mamelodi Sundowns incident, where he felt now there was clearly an issue there. Weird, really weird. Then how, I guess, SAFA, PSL are two organizations that I guess are probably the two most, not probably, they are the two most powerful organizations in our South African football. But it doesn't seem to be pulling in the same direction, the two of them. So yeah, it's funny, So I mean, I wanted to speak about some of those real talking points from the Bafana Bafana coach. And I thought, what, I'm going to rope in Menzi Ngcobo, former Nathi Lions, and eThekwini Coastal's football administrator. I know he's worked at QT Sports as a football agent, and a man who knows a lot about the South African football scale. So I sent him to just go and see what's out there in the world and to get a little bit, a little bit of information to be able to share with all of you as the listeners / viewers. So yeah, I've got Menzi. He's standing by at the moment. So let me let him into our discussion, because yeah, it's fascinating, So yeah, welcome to the FisMaz Show, everyone. And I think we're going to get cracking now with regards to, I guess, today's specific subject. It's all about Hugo Bruce, Bafana Bafana, and I guess the weird environments around the club, especially, or rather around the national team, especially looking at how well they started from a from a qualifier's point of view. You know, I don't think we expected them to do as well as they have. But at the moment, Bafana Bafana, I guess, in pole position, and it's theirs to lose at this stage. So yeah, Menzi is he's joining me. He's looking fresh. He's got a nice cut. You know, he's looking handsome. Hey, nice life. Hey, even got AirPods, brother.
Mama, we're moving up in life, Mama. Moving up, Papa.
Yeah, love to see it. Love to see it, boy. Yeah, what's happening?
Yeah,
Keeping, I know you've been a busy man. You've been up and down, and you've been doing big things, huh?
We're trying, and my business partner and I are trying to launch this West African football project. So we've been on a campaign trying to visit a few PSL clubs to see whether they'll be catching on to our idea. So it's been a very interesting past couple of days for me. I've been up in Joburg for 2-3 days. So yeah, man, let's see what the future holds in terms of my side of the story when it comes to football business.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know from my side, I mean, I'm always quite interested to see, I guess, your developments. I know, you know, in terms of people I've known for a long time, there's no one who's more of a football man through and through than yourself. So, and I know there's so much passion with regards to the game itself. And I guess, you know, there's a lot of holes in our football. And I know you're a guy who's keen to, I guess, plug into some of those. I know you haven't said what you want to say right now.
Which is what? Which is why you're wearing a Pirates jersey. I mean, I'm not even...
You know I'm neutral. You know I'm neutral. I'm neutral.
Yeah.
I'm neutral. So I was waiting for you to comment because I know that you're a Kaiser Chiefs man. But you know me, I'm a neutral. Come on. I mean, tell the people.
Yes, you're very neutral. You're walking that tightrope between neutral and...
You know,
good luck with that neutral story.
You know, every time I go on Facebook, all the guys, I guess, all the guys from that we grew up with, I always post there, you know, I know, you know, us neutrals, you know, and everyone's always there in the comments. Neutral, you, come on, guys.
So no one is neutral. No one is neutral. We are bound by our occupational hazards because we have allegiance to who pays our salaries at the end of the day. And in your line of work, it's important for you to always spread that message of neutrality. But we all know the truth.
Look,
once a Buccaneer.
Neutral. That's my story.
Well,
that's my story.
Maybe what you should do is wear a Chiefs jersey for a week. Let's see how neutral you are.
I don't own one.
No, we can send you one, Chief. We can organize.
I'm going away next week.
you see your stories.
I'm going away next week. What must I say?
That's fine. Your word when you come back.
I'm moving.
Yeah, move on. Move on.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Ep17 Ngcobo. You guys don't understand, you know, all the viewers and listeners, they don't understand. They would say, you know what? You know, this person here, one day, when this person blows up, hey, I mean, but anyway, I'm not going to go there. I see TJ. But we want to create a new website.
But work in progress.
Nazog. Sister sports.
Sure.
But stool. Let's focus on today's topic, bro, because Hugo Bruce, you know, when he came into the country, you thought to yourself, okay, I looked at his age and I thought, this guy's old, man. You know, he's old. He's gonna come here with this European tendencies, and you know, is he gonna be good for us? I would have liked a younger coach. I would have liked. I mean, I'm not too worried about the foreign coach perspective. I know initially, you know, this episode I wanted to speak about that, but I know I'd covered that with Dane Clayton and Stanton Lewis a while back, so I didn't want to seem like I'm keep driving home about European coaches, you know. But you know, I looked at it and I thought to myself, I would have loved younger blood to potentially come in. But then I also thought, no matter who you put there, you're fine, and I guess it brings me to today's topic because he said a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I want to start with the very first one. And for me, one of the biggest problems, the fact that, our football structures just don't seem to pull together for the betterment of the national team. So, yeah, let's start there. Let's start there and just dissect that particular part.
Let's start with football structures. So, when it comes to podcasting and talking about these issues, there's a lot of sensitivity involved in this because Abanyebe, including myself, and probably more so in your case, we have to tread a very fine line on what we say and how we say it and what is speculation and what is in the public domain and what is true and what is not true. What are the honest truth is that in order for you to understand where the story comes from, you need to understand the footballing landscape in South Africa. The makeup, the structural makeup of our professional football is made up of family-owned businesses and individually owned businesses that are run by individual business people who have individual business interests. The football playing side and the football professional side comes secondary to the business side of football. Because what funds the football machine is what they make outside of football. So they make decisions based on that. It's a very narrow and selfish perspective. But if you're a consumer looking at the product, when are you thinking these things should be done in a certain way? But are they looking at it in a different way? If I'm running a tuck shop or a spaza shop or a tavern, I need to meet my costs and to meet my overheads, and I need to sort of cross my T's and dot my I's. And that is the problem. So, Bona, they don't care who thinks what. They're going to run their football businesses the way they see fit. So the problem then becomes, how does that then filter through to the national setup? It filters through to the national setup because the professionalism Hugo Gross is talking about comes from a very sort of divergent perspective. There's not one blanket professional approach to all the football clubs in the PSL. Each club is to their own, and each club does what they see fit for their business and for their players, and that will automatically affect how the national team is picked, how the national team is set up, and how the national team eventually plays. So maybe as a foundation, people need to understand that. And if we want to dive deeper into that, we can. That's the reason why you see what you see in the footballing landscape in South Africa.
You know what? I mean, you make some fantastic points there. And obviously, I agree with a lot of them, or not a lot of them, all of them, but one of the really intriguing parts of all of the things that Hugo Bruce obviously spoke about. And I mean, you could see, this old timer from Belgium is perplexed. He doesn't understand what Zizhala is stuff,
Sure.
And like you're saying, as football fans, as people who love the national team, I know a lot of people have lost faith, but I mean, I will always be South Africans, and whether it's the Proteas, it's the Springboks, we must show the same energy, and we'll always back Bafana Bafana to the hill,
Sure.
And I look at the whole thing, and I think I looked at the coach and I thought to myself, man, this guy is frustrated by a system that perhaps he's only getting to grips with now. But I think the biggest frustration from fans' perspective is when sometimes it's just the little things that just are not done right, I mean, he spoke about Thabiso Kutumela getting a COVID vaccine when he's supposed to be
during the camp.
And it's like, but that's not even something that's like now a deep thing, but it's those small things that build up. And that's just one case, He said he wanted to play some friendlies. All of a sudden, players are now not available, etc., etc. Again, it seems like there's little things, because someone else may say, well, why don't you use the players that were available, etc., etc. But you're trying to build something, if you're not going to select those other players, then it surely defeats the entire purpose of what Hugo Bruce is trying to do.
So here's the thing, right? there's no difference between, and I know I might be stretching it now. There's a very small difference between Stanley Prima Shabalala's original Bafana Bafana to Hugo Bruce's Bafana Bafana now. I don't know, something like 20 or 30 odd coaches later. The only difference now is that Hugo Bruce has verbalized this. He's brought this out into the public domain. He's spoken about it publicly because obviously he comes from a very neutral and very professional perspective, and he just, like you said, he's perplexed with how. Nothing's different, Fiso. Nothing is different. No Bafana Bafana team coach is going to tell any club or club official how to run their setup or how to consider maybe about FIFA regulations or maybe to take into consideration the importance of the national setup above their own personal clubs. And you see these things in Europe as well. Maybe there's a difference there because those setups are slightly more professionally run. Maybe they have an authority that they all subscribe to, and it's different in Argentina. But in terms of what happens in South Africa, nothing's changed. So let me paint a picture, right? So it would be an amazing thing if, say, for example, Greenwood doesn't pitch for the English national team setup. That would be like, how did he not come? How's that an issue? But in South Africa, Goodman Mosele, it's like, we used to that. Thina that work in football. And Uzotelo would know there's personal issues or there was a personal problem that he had to deal with. Usually those things don't come into the fore, but they get covered. They get covered by the PR people, they get covered by the owners and the managers and administrators of the clubs. But sometimes it's something that is it's a club decision that was taken. Sometimes it is generally a personal player issue that gets covered up and then never gets to the public domain. No, a player is injured. He picked up an injury the last game, or he picked up an injury in the last training session of his club. In the camp. Those things are normal. But the problem then becomes, how do you then expect a coach to deliver top-class results if you don't give him top-class material to work with? And that's the thing. I really hope, and for Hugo's sake, I hope he succeeds. I've spoken to one player who's in camp. Hey, listen, Menzi, this time, this is the most professional call-up he's ever been a part of. Like, no one is allowed to visit camp. No one is allowed to leave camp. No one is allowed to have contact with outside people in the camp. No one is allowed to do anything untoward. And the first 11 is picked on attitude and performance during the training camp and during the sessions at camp. Not to go to whether you have a name, you've been playing well for Sundowns, you're in the Champions League final. He doesn't care. He looks at your attitude. What happens? What do you do when the ball goes out during training? What happens when you get kicked in training? What happens when you miss a drill or a set piece in training? He is a slave driver. He expects perfection and he expects things to be done in a certain way. So, he's not here to play Mickey Mouse games. This is a guy who has pedigree, who's won the African champion, the AFCON before. So he knows how to pick a team and he knows how to make players play. So if he's going to take some of his internal frustrations into the public domain, one, South African media is going to eat him for breakfast and the Twitter streets are going to eat him for breakfast. The players will tell you a different story. We'll collect 3 points. So it's going to be interesting to see how things turn out.
And I mean, interesting. You mentioned Twitter. I'm reading a quote here from David Capel, and he's saying that, this is what Hugo Bruce said. He's like, I have a feeling that club level in this country is more important than Bafana Bafana. Just to pick up on the point that you were making there. And straight away, you think to yourself, boss, you've been called up to the national team. Like, I don't understand. Help me understand, man. Maybe help me understand. What's going on? Like, if phones, no.
So help me. A couple of years ago, being called up to the national team was an honor. One, it was an honor for you to don the national colors. Two, it was an honor because it gives you now an opportunity to be seen on a bigger stage, on a bigger African stage, on a bigger global stage. So it was an honor. Adding to that, it was also an added benefit for a player to have national caps. It gives him an added opportunity to start advertising himself for European clubs who need you to have a certain number of appearances in order for you to get work permits to play in the top leagues. So what happens now is that South Africa has dropped global ratings in terms of football. And dropping the South Africa global ratings in football means that the European market doesn't take the national team setup seriously. A player like Percy Tau had to go via Belgium and spend a couple of seasons there to get a work permit to come to England, which normally wouldn't have happened. Like, for example, Mabizela played in the Vodacom Challenge. He was signed by Tottenham. A couple of weeks later, he was already in the setup. Ngobani, the strength of the national team ranking allowed him to get a work permit quicker. So, manje, we play, we totally call up the national team. You're thinking to yourself, hey, I'm fighting for my position in Timini while I'm away by Ajima, and I might not be in the plans in the next PSL game or the next cup game. I might get COVID or and not play and come back and pop when I come back to my team. So it's like, what am I benefiting from this? And there's been other issues in the past. When you get called up to the national team, you don't get your money as quickly as you're supposed to, like your match fee or your appearance fee or your call-up fees. So there's that issue as well, which is SAFA delays payments of players and none that. So the camp is not the camp it used to be. So umdlali akasayiboni importance yokuthi athi jump to the core of a national team coach which does represent the country. I second your sense of allegiance.
Menzi. And I mean no disrespect to the player in question. I mean no disrespect to, I guess, the players that have played for Bafana Bafana over the past few years, but what the hell have they achieved?
Nothing.
So
what are they still going to achieve? Nothing.
What gives them the divine right to be called up to a national team? And I mean, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I'm speaking too much as a patriotic South African. But who the hell are you? There's people that
that's the one
for that jersey. That have won titles.
Okay.
So,
fair enough.
I get it. I get there's other sideline issues, but no, man. It surely. I mean, am I too angry as a South African to when I say that?
Well, you justified for saying that, but like someone who's going to be watching this podcast, right? They're going to be like, but we've heard this story before. Everyone feels the way Fiso feels, and we all know nothing's going to be done. Maybe we should use this platform to educate or maybe help people understand what other dynamics are at play. And I know I'm not as explicit as I should be, but let me just give you a slight example of what I mean. In many instances where this incident, Goodman Mosele, is not his personal, it wasn't under his personal terms. Tell what he was told, with Lalela, you're not going. Yeah? Tell with Lalela Valifon, we will deal with the issues that come with you not being able to report for camp. That is a huge possibility that a lot of people will not be aware of. So no, we've got commitments, we've got plans now. You're missing this or missing that we need to work on now. Because of 1, 2, and 3, and then the player ends up not going. Or like Hugo Bruce has hinted in many platforms and interviews I've seen on Kickoff and other platforms like on Twitter and stuff. Maybe I might be sabotaged. Maybe there are forces that are working against me to be successful. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that was true. Ngoba, there seems to be a rift in the relationship between ISAF and PSL. It coming up from what? From the top leadership of the two organizations that don't seem to see eye to eye on many issues. Now we are asked. Most of them are well documented. So if you are talking about players in South Africa, where do those players come from? They come from the commercial side of football, which is PSL. Who needs the players to represent the national team? ISAF. Who controls where the players are and how the players get there? It's the clubs. So if the club is saying, if someone gives a word, who are you going to listen to? The national team coach, also Mbiza the next game, or you're going to listen to the one who pays your salary? You're going to listen to the one that pays your salary. And again, it's a speculator. We don't have facts. What I'm saying to you is, none of those things that have been mentioned or put out there by Hugo Bruce can be far off from the truth. there is a lot of truth to what he's saying, but no one is bold enough in South African football to stand up for the truth and say, oh, wrong, oh, wrong. Certain things shouldn't be done the way they are. So you find us as people who love the game and want to consume every bit and part of the game confused. We but we don't have the real answer. There are other forces at play that we might not be aware of.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I must.
So yeah, so you want to complicated. So you want to complicated kanjani. So when I tell you how could Mosele be value phone why it's happening or maybe the guy is at camp. He's probably at Pirates in training. Pirates has been training this week. They train twice a day actually, or they had 2 commitments a day this whole week. They're busy. Manja, what are you telling me? He's at home during FIFA week doing nothing. Highly unlikely, man. Highly unlikely. But are you going to be the one who's going to accuse someone from Pirates for not releasing Goodman Mosele? No one is going to be bold enough to do that. It's so easy. It's so easy, Fiso, to say, Goodman Mosele is a typical South African footballer who hasn't achieved anything and he's starting to act like a prima donna. Everyone will forgive him. Who pays the salary? It's Pirates. And they're going to pick him for the next game. Who's right? He's not injured. So all of a sudden, the pistol problems are gone. So someone else, maybe on a different platform, maybe someone who's bolder about speaking the truth or speaking truth to power might give you details to what I'm alluding to. But the truth of the matter is, it's not a one-sided story. We can't play. It has nothing to do with that. There are so many dynamic factors at play. And Hugo Bruce is hinting on something that might land him in hot water. So he's probably crossing fingers. I'm hoping you win these 2 games against Ethiopia. Then people will start taking me seriously. But all they want, according to what he's saying or according to what he's alluding to, is for him to fail and then for them to justify the story of why don't we have a national team coach who comes from the borders of South Africa coaching our national team. Sebenzoma justified. Maybe it's an opportunity for SAFA and PSL to come to the table, Fiso, and start talking issues through. You're talking about, hey, when you open the show, hey, I would have liked to see a young coach. I would have liked to see someone with fresh blood and fresh ideas. They will not provide a person like that. In one of the clubs in the PSL, national team, coach national team, or young, or fresh ideas. If we have coaches, qualified coaches with CAF licenses, coaches who are working on UEFA licenses, who can't even get into MDC structures, Baba. The system doesn't allow for these things to happen. We know because we are privy to some of these things in the back alleys of South African football. Nathi behind, certain shadows, not listening. We all want an opportunity at the slice of the pie. But at the end of the day, I don't blame Goodman Mosele. Maybe one day when he's retired, Mr. Simboza, it wasn't me. I was told to California, Monday. Then was the team.
Yeah, no, it's. That's why we bring people like you on the show to enlighten us with regards to those kinds of things. And again, I look at it from a different perspective now. I'm not saying I forgive and forget. No. But I get it when you put it like that. And the sad thing is, if you have Hugo Bruce coaching for the next 4 years, where does he then sit? As a player, and a player who's trying to establish himself at a great club, a player who obviously has lots of potential. Will he get called up again? Will those issues be solved? So I guess there's a lot at play, and again, we could talk about it all night. But I want to move on to the next point, of I guess the Hugo Bruce diaries, because another point he spoke about was just how South African football is not really regarded, around the world. He's mentioned Ghana, he mentioned Senegal, he mentioned some other countries in West Africa, and South Africa just doesn't come up. It's really sad when you think, Dr. Kumalo, Sean Bartlett, John Shoes Musheu, Lucas Radebe, Sbosiso Zuma. That the list of players that not only went to Europe, but became greats within their European teams. Benny McCarthy, There's a lot that played in a 10-year era that has gone, and that's the saddest thing, and it probably, what he said, while some people may, depending on what glasses they have on when they look at it, some people may say, like, who does he think he is, but he's speaking his truth. And as a South African football fan and as someone who follows the game globally, I can't disagree with him. You know what I mean?
Okay, so when we spoke to the West African people, we spoke to a Ghanaian CEO, Legon City. So we're speaking about the potential of bringing players from West Africa into the South African market. He said the South African market is not attractive to West African players. Why? Because of the level of football, not because of the salaries. The professionalism of the game has gone the opposite direction. Abadlali are not expected to perform at a certain level. Abadlali, they're only expected to reach a very average level in terms of performance. They're not driven to get to supreme level standards to compete on the African continent and to compete globally. So he's right with regards to that. So further to those discussions, we were thinking about, okay, if we bring an 18-year-old from West Africa into South Africa with the potential of sending them into Europe, who's going to want to take them based on the fact that they've been playing in the PSL? No one. A couple of seasons ago, there was a player who was offered a contract overseas, and what seemed to be a lucrative contract, a lucrative deal. He turned it down for a local contract because his dream was always to play for a certain South African club. Why? He feels like he can get paid the same amount of money here and not have to incur the expenses of having to travel abroad. So those dynamics affect player ambition, and player ambition affects player performance. And player performance affects team results, and team results affect overall ranking of the setup. So obviously, no one's going to take South African football seriously if the players themselves don't take the setup seriously. So it has a ripple effect. It's a domino effect that always affects the next thing. The next thing affects the next thing. So what's going to end up happening is if we don't qualify for continental competition, if we don't qualify for World Cups, no one is going to want to even listen to you more to come off from South Africa. Right now, we are singing the praises of Peter Shaluli. Everyone's singing, Shaluli. Shaluli. How many goals does he have? How many goals does he have, Fiso? 8? 8 goals? If he scores another 2 goals, we'll be singing his praises rules of Felicity. Tell me, call me up again at the end of the season and tell me if Ushaluli will have even 15 goals. Probably not. You'll probably end up with 12 goals overall and probably like 9 or 10 in the league. The standard of South African football in terms of that aspect of the game is very low. Again, coupled by the fact that the teams are now smaller, the amount of teams are smaller, the pool of games is smaller, so you don't have many chances to score goals or to perform longer. But Kyafana, we have like an additional cup, which makes up for the amount of games that a season should have. Kyafana, still, players don't perform at that level. So, it's actually mediocrity, man. Just celebrate Mundo 8. What do you think that does for the national team setup? Give me one top South African born striker right now. I know. Look, those niggas are an opportunity when you go to Ethiopia. Uzothi Evidence Mokop, how many goals does Evidence Mokop have? Uzothi, the Maritzburg striker, I always forget his name. Ushongwan, how many goals does he have for Maritzburg? 3? And you expect them to go to Ethiopia and score the amount of goals that we need to qualify for the next round? If you can't perform at your club, how are you going to perform at the national setup? You won't. To the picture I'm trying to paint, the difference between maybe a Hugo Bros and the previous 2 coaches, maybe Bafana Bafana, is that he's come out publicly and spoken about it because he has nothing to lose. He's not from South Africa, and I can't mention these people's names because they are like gold dust. He doesn't care. He was employed to do a certain job and he expects certain things to be delivered in a certain way. But what he's come up against is all the things that will prevent a coach from being successful. Over the past 5-6 years, what has prevented Bafana Bafana from performing? Now, I'm answer. Hugo Bruce has them live on Twitter and on every sports website you can find. Those are the problems. 1, the league is not run professionally. 2, the clubs don't give a damn about Bafana Bafana. They don't prioritize the Bafana Bafana. Three, no player has ambitions of playing for the national team. They don't really care. You know, one or two coaches will make noise. Why was this player not picked because he performed well? But the rest of the team don't care. If FIFA Week is an opportunity for them to balance their books, it's an opportunity for them to sort out other issues when they have no games to take into consideration. Some of them don't even know what Bafana Bafana. You know, and the sad thing is that the players that are not called up, they won't be watching the Bafana Bafana on the 9th of October. I can guarantee you. They won't even be watching Bafana Bafana on the 12th of October. Quick one before you take on. When was the last time you saw when fans were still allowed in the stadium? When was the last time you saw former players or players that were not picked actually arriving at a game to watch the national team, to support him, or to show which, hey, I should have been there? Have you ever seen it come out and turn into a player on the stands with, hey, he wasn't picked, he's here, maybe he's eating peanuts, he's waiting to be called for the next game? Never. Soccer players in South Africa don't watch football. They don't care. Manchester City, they never watch themselves. In South Africa. So what do you expect?
Yo, what was that? What is that famous football saying?
And you speak about youth, Fiso. You speak about youth in terms of the coaching. How about youth in terms of administration? How many young, fresh minds are in these leadership positions? Kasafa, PSL, even in clubs. Who's running these clubs? Who's making the decisions? It's the families, it's the sons and daughters of the families who are running the clubs and who are making the decisions. Up there in the league and in the national federation, it's people that we've recycled the same people. Usuga from one regional structure or from one club, how do you expect them to make changes? And who's going to challenge the powers that be? That whole hierarchy up there itself. No one's going to rock that boat. It's more about politics and the jostling of power than it is about football administration and doing things the right way. Yes, these people that have been there are very knowledgeable and they've plowed the soil and they've fertilized the ground. They have to come a point when the baton is passed on to the next generation so that they themselves are challenged by young minds to say, okay, to understand what's going to coming up, but how can we now plow forward and start thinking of new ways? Maybe we benchmark ourselves against other leagues or other setups with a small note. We're improving the lessons. Currently, so you can't expect it to happen in on the bench. You can't expect it to happen anywhere else if it's not happening in any other structure like the boardroom. So isn't because they're fun. Nothing is being done differently.
Yo, Gunzima, you know, and again, you know, it's one of those topics that I just get a feeling that if we recorded this show until 2 a.m, we probably wouldn't be done. You know, we just keep finding something to pick at. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think let me just shift it back to Bafana Bafana itself on the field of play, and just pose the question to you. I mean, the one thing the coach has done well is that, well, maybe it's early to say done well, but there's been a clarity in saying, I out with the old, in with the new. I'm going with the young boys. Tlatwa out, Kune out, Zungu not called up. I don't even know if he's playing wherever he is in the world. And there's just been a clarity to say, I'm going with these guys. You know, no Bradley Krobler, no nothing. You know, so when I look at the Bafana Bafana squad, and I think to myself, hey, you know, as a football fan, it's no one I really like, ish. You know, it's like, okay, cool, let's see what they've got, you know. And so far, you know, you can say that they've ticked the boxes that they've needed to tick.
But that's the thing. So let's say, okay, you speak about the ish factor. Nami, I was like, for a moment, I was like, ish, but let's be honest, right? Let's look at all the guys that were not called up, that maybe don't fit the age criteria or the new thinking of the coach. Are they playing in their clubs, right? If they are, how much of an impact are they making in their clubs? Man, just the other day, Dino Ngcobo is in the news. He's banging in goals in some second division somewhere in Eastern Europe, right? But how many goals does he have? He's got 6 and 3. All of a sudden, he's top news. Kanjan. when there are people scoring 40, 50, 60 goals because you need now. So what's the level? It's Kulmangayola. If you look at squad set, yes, we've been consistent in who we picked, none, but you can't expect to see fireworks in the national team if there's no fireworks in the league. And I know you might say, yeah, but I'm drifting. I'm not. I'm saying, here's the PSL Fiso. 16 teams, okay, 32 National Soccer League, 32 teams, including Glen Africa. Who's performing at a level at Tusai now as a player, which I want to go and see that guy. His Sundowns is dominating the league, and not even one club is putting a finger on Sundowns. Like, not even a finger on Sundowns. Sundowns is playing games at three-quarter pace. So three-quarter pace.
You know, like I always watch like guys like Rivaldo Kutsia and Andy Lejale in midfield, and it looks like they just like in year two. You know, at best, it's like.
Have you seen Ulukuza Uzwane receive ball swing? He seems like he's got 3 weekends, a public holiday, and a school winter break.
Oh, dark weekend special.
He picks and chooses which one wins on the ball. I was watching when I was in Joburg, that hotel TV. I was watching them break down and analyze Liverpool versus Man City. Oh, mind blowing, bitch! How those two teams have spent, I don't know how long they spent analyzing and studying each other, and put on a performance during the game. The players rose to the occasion individually. The teams rose to the occasion. The coaches rose to the occasion. Masuya Sundowns versus Pirates. Ushalulile just scored a goal from a 6-yard bar line cross against Chiefs 2 games ago. Against Pirates, Ushatwayo Uche, the left back. Babu Ushalulile Pole. They all looking at him. Pole. Benzanjani, Tati Paul, the exact same type of goal. They have not paid enough attention with Kraft by Enzai. They're not focused on what they're doing. So obviously, what are you going to expect from a national team? The same thing. We are Ngena, this guy who used to play for Wits, he came on as a sub in the Pirates and Sundowns game. Forget, he wears number 8. Monare. Ngena Monare la Fiso. First 2 minutes, it's only ball. Wait, Tasha Shay back pass. Udali wall pass, no. Shot drive, takes the ball, gets intercepted. They try and win it back. It goes the far wing. Ulake, Real press ball. He has like what seemed like 30 minutes, right? Sets the ball up. Now Crocs. All of them are looking. They're ball watching. The only guy who was illiterate was Mark, who was playing left back, but he was like 6 yards away. Head, goal. How, gents? How are we playing this game? So how do you expect those players to be picked for the national team? You can't. Must be a pick off floors, those players, like for me, if Ghana, if Ghana had all their top players there, I don't think we would have come out alive for that game. Even the goal we scored was a scrappy, like neck finish into the bottom corner, almost didn't really take the shot. The ball almost took the shot itself off his shoulder or off his foot. It's just depressing, our setup, our level of commitment when we play. How do you let a team like Sundowns just run away with things? And I know all names, no man might argue. No one's letting them. But at the end of the day, they are untouched, Fiso. So what does that do for the game in the country? Not good. It's not a good reflection. I'm following the Goodman Chiefs. It's a Goodman club who are right, and this is right. I'm calling the Chiefs. What do you expect? You get, okay, yes, flavor of the week, none. But even they will fall off the pace after 5 or 6 games after the FIFA break. But there's just no consistency. I don't know, dude. In trouble.
And I remember there was a game, I don't know which game it was. I think it was after the Paris game. And Andy Lejali made the most arrogant comment, but it was just so true. When he was like, iPirates yeah siyazi bazosiza ukuthi bathatha ama-point kwabanye. And I was just like, bro, yeah, iqiniso, but you're didn't have to say that.
Dude, so true. It's so true. And sometimes because izinto ey'didayo nje, so when you look at it, ezididayo nje ukuthi okay, kwenzakalani, yabo. Like a professional setup like maybe super sports. Okay, they now have financial constraints since the reshuffling of the finances or the finance system there. Got a super sport versus Sundowns was a Pretoria to a derby. So, like blood was shed there. The ground was suffering. Man, I mean, about the Sundowns, when they decide, it's okay, it's just going to go God, like they just go and do that, right? But of their players, who can you pick for the national team? Who can you pick? Utinja, okay, Tatu Erasmus Shailama. You can't even pick him because his role in that squad is not a role of filler like can help the national setup. Menga Bizo to the national team. Look at that entire squad. It's generic makeup. You will see the types of mistakes Utiruk will be making against Ethiopia. He's such a haphazard defender, but because no one in the league puts any pressure on him, he looks like the best defender in the world. Like what striker has given him like torrid times during games? Not even one. One who's running the channels and ripping his jersey off his skin. No one. So when you're picking players from Sundowns, you're picking players that are the best in the country, but they are best untested players in the country, I feel. The only time they get a test is when they get to these types of competitions. Ethiopia who plays for the fishing team. They've got hunger.
Who plays for what?
The fishing team. Eagles. Eagle Warriors.
Woo! You know what? I know what? I've heard it all. I've heard. I'm a plumber. So to coach himself now with a fishing team. And you know what? I think about that. You play against some guy who does not know English, who does not know who the hell you are. They don't care. They're coming to kick you, coming to plow your eyes out, everything.
Sure, exactly. So, wait, team, and none of these players will take a loss like too hard. We just lost the game, like maybe they dropped to the floor. Never. Or we just lost. Like, so let's move on, dude. When you paying me my money, like there's no sense of anything, pride, nationalism, nothing, dude. So now, I know I'm painting a gloomy picture. It starts all the way from the clubs. It starts from the setup of the national federation. It starts from the league. Look, kudos to the league. We've been able to amass huge amounts of revenue that have changed how clubs' bank balances look to a huge degree. But those monies have not filtered into making the game more professional. It seems as if, yes, it's helped club bosses pay salaries, but it hasn't helped professionalize the way they run their clubs. Like, have a proper structure in your club. Technical team must tick all the boxes. I'll tell you something, and I know I might be roasted for this. There are some clubs who will only call a team doctor for match days. That's the only time a team doctor wears the tracksuit. During the week, we say Charia Kalapaya doing his thing. And then at 2:45, Bamnigi tracksuit, Lapaya, that's the end of it. PSL wants us to have a team doctor, provide the certification, you're a registered doctor. For 90 minutes, on. So you're telling me players are going to go and get tested, come for fitness, and when they come back from preseason, they will go to a medical facility away from the club. They don't have those facilities in clubs. You're going to tell me about an analysis breakdown. There are 3 teams that do that. Analyze a game, show videos of games, press pause, start play, look at stats, how individual players have performed during the game. Look at Amisco reports, miles covered, efforts made, back passes, side passes, forward passes. How many teams do that in the league? About 3 or 4. You understand? So, uzofika lapha Hugo Bruce umkhulumela isiGreek. Greek, if you tell me a player who comes from Iskukun, has he ever seen a tactical breakdown analysis? Has he ever been involved in a masterclass of tactical discipline? What do you mean? But 11v11, so Yamashedo runs off the ball. They don't do that. 11v11. Hey, I'm on 18. I mean, and then you expect that guy to go and play at a global stage, at an African stage. You can't expect it from them. So it's too much. It's too much. It's going to take an entire revolution to change the way football is run. What do we need in football to change this? We need accountability in it. We can't have club bosses accountable to themselves. We can't have a national federation accountable to itself. It has to be accountable to its people. And right now, you ask questions about how things are done in SAFA, you get muted. You ask questions about how things are done in the PSL, you get muted. That's a problem. That's affecting sports in our country, unfortunately. But we have to sort of like swallow the pill and stool it, then we come on platforms and start talking tactics. And tactics are the last thing on these people's mind. Last thing.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think, look, we can end it there. A fascinating discussion. And I mean, obviously, you've made some great points with regards to the DSTV Premiership, because as a brand, it's grown, and I can't even put into words. Like you said, it's changed so many lives, and it's changed so much in South African football. But yeah, plenty to work on. And yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating journey, and one that we'll keep following. But yeah, thank you for joining me once again. Bekumnandi so besiyibambe insimbi ngokushisa siyibambe sihlezi neutral. So yeah, no, ayasibonga.
Yeah, right.
Asibonga. Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you, my brother.
All right, now that's where we'll end it for the FisMaz Show. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. No doubt you will take a lot from that discussion. I'm sitting here scratching my head. I'm sitting here puzzled, but I'm also sitting here thinking, some really interesting talking points for the future. Bye-bye. Don't forget to do the right things. Keep following the show, keep loving the show, keep commenting, keep doing the things, man. Make sure you tell your friend to tell their friend to tell their friend. FisMaz Show, Fiso Mazibuko. Bye-bye. Ciao.